Johnny Dare, Nycki Pace. It is Friday, sons of bitches. In a few minutes, Tim Matthewson. I was just going back to the book, Damn Glad to Meet You. And it's just the story of this guy, like where he came from, how young he was, where he was the breadwinner for his family. His dad had split, just he and his mom and his sister, and she's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then, he supported them, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but when he finally got Johnny Quest was the big money, but before that, he got a job on a TV show and Window on Main Street, and they paid him, and this is back in, it had to be the 60s, $100 for 1 day, $200 for 2 days, $400 for 5 days.
That's crazy money.
But even as a kid, he was like, why did I get $500 for 5 days? He's like, you ripped me up, but that's how the guild worked. That's the way it was set up. But if you were lucky enough to move those, then you would be willing to give up a little bit of that money, right? But he's like, why don't I just work 4 days then? But as soon as he started making it, you understand how much money that was.
Back then?
It was an incredible amount of money, man. Well, it's $400 then. It's like $4,000 now. And that's what I'm reading from the book. It's literally that. Imagine being a boy,
kid,
poor, your dad's gone, and someone's like $4,000, and you come into that kind of money. That's crazy, right?
And you know how much your mom's working her ass off.
Then he'd come back a couple times, come back after that, and then he became a recurring regular, which got him back in that range. And suddenly, he's getting $4,000 at a time. Mm-hmm. Now, they didn't go buy a mansion, but they bought a house. They no longer had to go. There was a house they lived in. I think they had to go through a closet to get to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's what you have.
That's just what you grew up with. And it all started for the guy and you guys most now know him in modern times from West Wing, right? Mm-hmm. And hell, his career had he was afraid it was over by the time he got to the West Wing.
Isn't that crazy?
He had kind of said, I'm just going to move out to the Santa Barbara, kind of the burbs of Los Angeles, and, in its own way, and take it easy. I got some money, and it'll be okay. But I missed the purpose of it all. He unfortunately lived next to Rob Lowe, who kept telling him, hey, man, you know what I'm doing? This is really fun.
Yeah.
He got the bug again. Ends up doing West Wing. Now he's doing stuff like Virgin River. And but Van Wilder, he was the dad in that. You remember Fletch, which was a game changer, man. And I'll tell you, if you can do time with Chevy Chase, you can do it with anybody.
Yeah. The guy's been in great, great things his whole career.
But Animal House.
Of course.
Maybe the greatest comedy. And again, we could talk about Blazing Saddles. We could talk about Caddyshack. We could talk about a million different things. But it's without a doubt one of the greats that they won't be making again. Mm-hmm. And it gave us a look into a world that we didn't know. And then what is it we always love? Underdogs. We always love underdogs. We always
the riff-raffs.
Always, man. I guess there's some that rooted for the frat boys and that, but well, you're you now, aren't you?
I love that he visited frat boys, and it did not go well.
They got their we'll have him tell that story. They got their ass kicked at the SAE fraternity, I believe it was.
Before shooting.
Yeah, they got... This is just when they started to shoot. I think it was up in Oregon when they were beginning to shoot it with John Landis. Dude, Bruce McGill had a goddamn black eye on the first day of shooting Animal House, and he was D-Day, my favorite character besides Blutarsky. And, of course, Belushi's character is always going to be iconic.
Sure.
But D-Day, of course, the one you kind of identify with, you're like, that's who I kind of want to be, right? But you always wanted to be a combination of D-Day and Honor. Honor was smooth.
Yeah, he was.
D-Day was straightforward. Mm-hmm. You didn't want to be Flounder so much, but you could probably end up being Blutarsky. It was amazing, man. And so many great things came out of that movie and his life. And it's one of those looks in his book. It's unapologetic and truthful and the fun of it all. And the hard parts.
Sure.
But, I never enjoyed the books where they're like, well, we did some drugs, but we didn't like it. Really? Because I did them. And I had a pretty good time. Luckily, it never cost me anything. When you go through a point in your life, you go, I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah. But it sure was fun.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah, we took ayahuasca in Peru and went bananas. I ended up bloody somewhere in Amsterdam one time.
We've learned the first step is owning it, and things are so much easier when you do.
Yeah, man. It's Tim Matthewson. I'm telling you, this book, I've always loved him as an actor, but now the book, it's the best.
Born December 31st in Glendale, California, our next guest started his show business career in his teens as the starring voice of the animated series, Johnny Quest. He eventually made the move to acting, making a name for himself in such films as Magnum Force, Fletch, a very Brady sequel, and the cinematic classic Animal House, as well as his Emmy-nominated work on the series, The West Wing. And today he's back to talk more about his recently released memoir, Damn Glad to Meet You, My 7 Decades in the Hollywood Trenches. Please welcome back to the show, Tim Matthewson.
Mr. Tim Matthewson, welcome back.
Good morning. Hi, Johnny. Hi, Nycki. How are you?
Morning.
This book, now I've gone over it twice. It makes me laugh both times. I love a good biography, man. I love a good, honest one where it's the ups, the downs, all of it, man. But what a life you've had.
Oh, my God, yeah. Listen, I was lucky enough to start when I was just a pup, so I could make a lot of mistakes because I still lived at home.
Yeah.
And, my mom paid the rent, so it was like if I wasn't working, that's okay. And
but it was
great. It was great.
It was a heavy beginning, though. I'm reading this book, and I'm like, man, his dad split when he was young. His mom was a fierce, just out there, just trying to get it done. You and your sister, and I'm reading through, and it gets to the part where you had to go live with an uncle and aunt, and they were really wonderful people, but they were church going folk, and you ended up in a Sunday school. And,
oh gosh!
And this creep gets you afterwards. I'm gonna give you a ride home, and he's like, "You want to sit on my lap? Does your dad ever let you drive?" And of course, you're a young boy without a dad. I mean, it's just you're so vulnerable, man. You're like, but this is real, right? So, but instinctively, it goes bad.
Yes, yeah. It just, it was the first time I ever was like, I shouldn't trust this adult. I mean, at that point, this is like the 50s, and you trusted adults to be adults and honest, And what happened is I just got out of the car and got home as quick as I could, and then I told my sister about it, and then all of a sudden, like a few days later, my aunt and uncle went out to church again in the evening. They never left us alone, and all of a sudden, there's a knock at the door, and this guy shows up again. My sister, who I told about it, went and got a handgun and answered the door so he could see the gun, and she said, "Go away, leave us alone." And
it's amazing.
Going, "Oh, okay." That's the end of that.
But I mean, think about it. How old was she? Was your sister 10 or 11?
She was probably 11 or 12.
That's crazy.
Probably, yeah.
And she knew to protect her little brother. You said, "Please don't let him in." And I mean, the balls on your sister. And
I know.
The next thing is, you never spoke, and you thought maybe you were like, "That's true, right?" Like you went to her not long ago and said, "Hey, that really happened."
Yeah. It was one of those things. I'd never really been aware that you can block things out like that, and what that really meant was like, oh, I remember that. Oh, yeah. It wasn't like I was some kind of or mental thing that I was conscious of. It was just, oh yeah, that happened. It just snuck up on me, and it was like, oh God, yeah.
And what did she say? What did she say when you asked her?
He said, "Oh, I just thought you didn't want to talk about it."
What a sister.
She's something.
Oh,
that's awesome.
I would have lorded over my brothers. Like, I have 3 brothers. I'd have been like, "You remember when I saved you from that dirty pervert? You remember that? Give me your bicycle." Like,
absolutely. Oh, my God. He's lucky he didn't get shot, I think.
He is. And God bless your sister. But these were a different world, right? So you end up going back with your mom.
Yeah.
But you catch a break on a TV show and Main Street, and $400 is a crazy number. That's $4,000, and suddenly you're not walking through a closet to go to the bathroom anymore. You can afford to rent a real place, and you're a young boy. You took your dad's position.
Kind of, I did, and it was good. I to try and to gain that kind of control and be able to help my mom and my sister at that age. And when I first could, I think I was 16 or 17, I bought a house. It was like, it was $29,500
with money you saved.
2 bedrooms and a den. Yeah, money I saved, and I think I put $6,000 down, which was 20%, which was big. But money I had saved, and I wanted to live there alone, but then I just I got to share it with my mom and my sister.
16's a rough one, man.
Otherwise, I'll look bad. It's like, jeez.
But I mean, the Johnny Quest, which, by the way, I knew about you, of course. Of course, Animal House, West Wing, Fletch, everything. I had no idea growing up as a kid watching Johnny Quest. You were the voice of Johnny Quest. I had no idea.
Oh, it was such a fun job. I mean, I sort of outgrew the kid parts on Leave It to Beaver and My Three Sons, so I was in that transition stage of being like a gawky teenager, and I could no longer play the little kid. And I had an audition with Joe Barbera over at Hanna-Barbera, which was one of my favorite cartoon makers. I mean, it was the only guy who was making cartoons for TV, and I got this part, Johnny Quest, and because I think I wasn't a cartoon voice, I was like a real voice, and oh my gosh, it was such an adventure, especially working with those people that did the voices like
Mel Blanc.
Oh, Mel Blanc.
Mel
what
Blanc.
An actor.
Bugs Bunny, Mel Blanc, a million others. I met his son Noel, and I was freaked out about Noel.
Yeah, I know, and Noel followed in his footsteps too, and it's a special skill. I mean, and to create, he could create voices and personalities for dogs, and give them a reality that you would believe. It was just amazing.
And so you become this huge star, right? Like as a young boy, and all of a sudden you find yourself. It was great because I hit the page where it said, I thought it was a big deal when they booked Mom and me into a first-class flight to Kansas City in a promotional appearance, and a helicopter flew over the Midwest to a shopping mall where you were going to be the voice of Johnny Quest. I mean,
that is a big deal.
Here in Kansas City.
Oh my God! It was like I just thought this is stardom, and they had a bunch of people lining up, and Johnny Quest wasn't even on the air yet. This is how sort of provincial it was. It wasn't even on the air, but it was coming on the air, and they were advertising it. All these people lined up to get my autograph, and it was fantastic. And then these little slips of paper I'd signed, and I didn't know. I'd never signed an autograph before, and when I was leaving and walking towards the helicopter, there were all these little pieces of paper fluttering around. People had just tossed away all these autographs.
What a
fame
look.
is fleeting, right?
Right? Well, but that's the moment. Like they knew television was such a big thing. They wanted to see the guy who's part of the magic, but they don't really know you yet. And of course, you're writing.
That's right.
Tim Matthewson, not Johnny Quest. And,
that's right.
And so they walk away there, but they just wanted to touch the magic because it was such a golden era. And
yeah,
I mean, Joe, you ended up playing a Hardy Boy, and the lessons you learn
from the greats.
I mean, truly, man, you were at Gleason, Lucille Ball, Dick Van Dyke, Clint Eastwood, Michael Landon, all of these names I keep reading through this book. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is magic.
I was so lucky. I was so lucky to have, at that age, I was 17, I think, when I worked for Lucille Ball. And, and she started in vaudeville. And so they did 3 to 5 shows a day. And I learned from her that the skill and the practice and the rehearsal you need to hone your scene or your act to make comedy work every time you do it.
Yeah. And
to find moments that you didn't know were there. And she made, there was no chit chat on the set with Lucille Ball. I mean, she was nice. She sort of took me under her arm and counseled me between takes, but and when we weren't shooting, she helped me. She basically was trying to teach me you got to be tougher. It's a full contact sports show business, so don't be so sensitive.
But isn't that amazing that Lucille Ball, because she was, and for those of you guys, if you don't know, it was a time women didn't have power in Hollywood, but Lucille Ball did. Desilu was for real, and to come up with a studio and be her, and she could have been terrible. Many women, many people in that era were just, their egos were crazy, right? But she, the work, the mentorship, the idea she put her hand on your back, and those are the things you never forget, by example or by talking to you. But man, I mean, I'm not saying anything you don't know. You touch greatness.
Well, I was so fortunate, and then Jackie Gleason. I was the biggest fan of the Honeymooners, Ralph Cramden and the Jackie Gleason show, and he was the same way. I mean, one of his pieces of advice to me was he said, be very generous. Always overtip, because half of them are actors and they need the extra dough. And if you don't overtip, then they'll say, "Oh no, he's a cheap bastard." So they'll bad rap you.
He was right.
And he knew how to wrap around you. When that director was effing around and screwing some stuff up, he pulled you to the side.
Oh, he did. He took me aside. He said, "Kid, you and me are the only ones who know what we're doing here. Let's do this scene and get out of here." And I felt like I was 12 feet tall. I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Gleason. Yes, sir."
But Jackie Gleason, and by the way, you haven't hit 18 yet, have you? At this point, I'm like,
no.
Crazy.
It was just amazing, because I knew him. I mean, I think it was I guess it was 1960. He did The Hustler.
Yeah.
61,
yeah.
I mean, so he was a dramatic actor and a comedic actor, and could, the skill that man had. And I mean, he asked, he was only on the show for 3 weeks with Bob Hope and How to Commit Marriage. And he asked, "What's the most an actor's gotten for 3 weeks work?" And they told him, he said, "I want $1 more."
That's the best. Dude, the characters, the people. But at the time, I think we don't know we're absorbing it. In real life, in normal life, where it's your uncles, your friends, or people you see, adults that make an impression on you. But yours were Lucille Ball, Jackie Gleason, all these people, Mel Blanc, you don't know at the time, but you're absorbing all of the things that got them there. A lot of the pieces, if you'll pay attention, right? And
yeah, it's true. And it sometimes doesn't dawn on you until later, oh, that's what they were saying. Lucy always said, she said, if you want to be a star, you have to act like a star. And I wasn't clear on what that meant until a few years later. She just meant you got to bring it. You have to craft it. You have to make it special and then bring it to the set and execute it. Don't expect it to be just in the script or just
that's right.
Just you'll find it on the set or get lucky. Just bring it. That was a great lesson to learn.
Well, that's what people don't understand. You've got this huge life, wildly successful, and it's fraught with so much stress. And the idea that people don't know, man, your job is 3 weeks at a time, 3 months at a time, and then you're back on the street,
right.
like putting in, for lack of a better term, applications. I'm applying for the next job now. Your entire world is based on hitting the streets again and showing them that you're something special again.
Yes, and that's a great point, Johnny. And it was one of those things that it's the discipline to handle those up and down, junctures that it's sort of like professional athletes. You're on a hitting streak, great. If you're in the slump, great. You just gotta muscle through it and take the lumps and then get back up and do it again. And that was sort of what I learned as a kid, and through Lucy and Jackie and all those people that and Landon, and Clint certainly, that you just gotta gut it out, and then good times, bad times shouldn't phase you at all.
And you would have never known. And I'm going to jump forward because I don't want to run out of time. I'll jump up to Animal House. You have no idea how it's going to change your life, how it's going to work. This idea, National Lampoon's Animal House. Belushi, of course, is a star. SNL has already made him a star. But the rest of it, man, you don't know. I mean, everybody's kind of for their first chance.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was my first comedy. And it was a special script. We knew it was written for young people, by young people, and it was sort of like Saturday Night Live in the movies, kind of that kind of humor, but National Lampoon humor. But who knew if it was going to work, but it was one of those things that the studio hated it, didn't want to make it, and all these special people, John Landis, Ivan Reitman, Harold Ramis, Doug Kenny, and John Hughes worked for the Lampoon. All of them would not have been what they as important to the movies business had they not gotten this movie made. And so it was a special alchemy between all of them to get this done, and they connived and wheedled their way to making this film when the studio only gave them a third of the lowest budgeted film they made that year. And they kept saying no to us, and they hated the movie. They did not want to release this movie.
So everything's against him. And then but he knows, Landis knows, get you guys together. You guys are you have to be a team. You're the underdogs. You are the guys nobody's going to bet on. you guys are different than everybody. And there's so many little points and nuances in that. Like the one thing, and I never realized it until I read it in your book. And if you're just joining the show, Tim Matthewson, we're talking about Animal House Otter. Never be mean. Never be mean to your own. It's okay. The guys who are against you, but you couldn't pick on Flounder. You couldn't, and I never realized in the movie, it's true. Everybody was together. The nerds. This is way before Revenge of the Nerds, which is just a remake of Animal House in its own way.
Right. Well, yeah, and he was so right. They have to like you, and we were the fraternity, the anti-fraternity. We let anybody in. Fraternity is keep out the nerds, keep out the people you don't like, and keep out anybody but people like us. And the Deltas were like, okay, they even let Flounder in. It's like, okay, why not?
So the best is, I never knew that you guys had been, I think it was in Oregon, and you decided you're going to shoot on a college. You meet a couple girls. It's really not that much of an age difference. It all works itself out. It's going to be a great time. Times were different. You come rolling up, and they take you to a frat house, and these guys are dicks, just like in the movie. They're straight dicks, and it turns into a whole thing. There's fist fights. You and Bruce McGill, dude, I'll let you tell Nick the story, but I was reading it going, come on. It's perfect. It's like God wanted it to happen.
It was one of the few miracles in my life. These young ladies invited us, the co-eds invited us to go to another fraternity house. We had gone to the ones that we worked in, so they knew us. And all of a sudden, these actors blow into the SAE house, and these guys are pretty drunk, and we got upstairs to their dance area, and I think it was Jim Doughton, who played Marmalade, came up to me and said, Tim, we got to get out of here. These guys are pissed, and the president wants to talk to you. And I said, let me talk to the guy. I mean, come on.
Right.
And I said, hey, we didn't mean any harm here. We didn't mean to offend. And he goes, get out. You got to get out. Only SAE members are allowed here. And I said, well, these young ladies invited us. And he said, well, they can't invite anybody. Yeah, I got to go. So they sort of shoved us out the door, and outside, half of our guys hadn't even gotten in, and so Jamie Widows knocked some guy's beer mug, his red Solo cup, through the air, and it splashed on a bunch of them.
Oh, good.
And they all turned on me. And this is the miracle was some guy, I don't know if he was like a Mormon or if he was just the only sober guy in that fraternity. He got in front of me and put his arms out, and I was back in a corner, and he just said, guys, just leave him alone. Let him go. Let him go. And then he said to me, he said, you got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so
that is your guardian angel.
Knocked to the but it was. Yeah, it was an intervention.
They chased you down the street with Bruce McGill, and poor Bruce McGill D-Day ends up with a shiner that they got to hide from Landis and everybody. On the first day of shooting, he has to go to makeup early to get covered up.
Oh yeah, and we were lucky we didn't get killed. I mean, because there was like 50 of them, and it was, and they're pretty drunk, and we were actors getting in character, and they didn't quite understand that, and they didn't want any part of it.
But the stories in there, like Belushi coming in, which he was great, you could think he might be a certain way because he definitely had already become part legend already. But who knew the Chicago boxcar would be the thing?
That was Bruce McGill he wanted that haircut, and when we all went, and we were all voting on each other's haircuts, let's do this. Let D-Day keep his handlebar mustache. And McGill said, I want a flat top with wings on the side. And the grizzled old barber said, yeah, it's a Chicago boxcar. I did those 6 times a day in the south side of Chicago. This guy happened to be from Chicago, where Belushi was from. And Belushi wouldn't get a haircut. He said, I need my hair like it is for Saturday night. So Landis grabs McGill and brings him next door where the bar was, where Belushi was hanging out and waiting for us to get our haircut. And he holds up a sheet in front of Belushi, of McGill, and he says, John, you're going to be so jealous that Bruce got this great haircut, and you did. And he goes, all right, let me see it. Pulls down the sheet, and they look at each other, and he goes, Chicago boxcar. And so all of a sudden, this barber is cool, and then Belushi says, all right, I get a haircut. So he got his hair trimmed too.
Dude,
there was a million moments like that, us going to visit the making of the Deathmobile, and just because we were there a week early. the Deltas, and we were the only ones that were there, and we got to bond. And by the time the Omegas came, a lot of those actors like Niedermeyer, Mark Metcalf came in from New York to play Niedermeyer, and he knew a bunch of the guys in the Deltas. And he knew McGill, I think, and Jamie Widows. So he came in the dining room where we were sitting, and he said, "Hey guys, I'm here." You know, thinking, "Oh, I'm here with a bunch of New York actors." We threw food at him and booed.
Yeah, right. What are you gonna do with your life? That guy, you know.
We didn't talk to him for a couple of weeks.
But Landis knew, get you guys together, set it in stone. Yeah. You're all young enough, and you feel that bond. You're there, and again, the ass kicking at the beginning, it's preordained. It was awful. I'm glad you're safe, but so necessary. And believe he would come in. What he'd come in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then have to go back for SNL.
Yes, yeah, they did, and then they put him on a plane Wednesday night. He'd go back to New York, get there Thursday morning, work, probably grab a few hours sleep. Then he'd rehearse Thursday, Friday, and during the day on Saturday. And then at 11:30 Saturday night, they'd go live and do it until 1 a.m. Then they'd probably party till 4 or 5 in the morning. And then he'd get on a plane and sleep all the way back to Eugene. And McGill and I would pick him up sometimes and then take him back to his house where he and Judy, his wife, had it. They kept John away from the roadway in where we stayed, so that he could have peace and quiet and rest. Because then he'd work 3 days with us, and then off he'd go again. But he was cool. I mean, he wasn't the star that we thought, this like prima donna guy who we didn't know, what he'd be like. Because Saturday Night Live was the biggest thing on TV at the time. It was amazing. People would go to a bar because they had it on the TV there, and you'd stay there for an hour and a half and watch it. It was awesome. No, it's there's so many stories in this book. If you're just joining the show, Tim Matthewson, Animal House, West Wing. We haven't talked about Fletch. We haven't talked about stuff like West Wing. But you thought, maybe it's all done. Maybe who knows? And unfortunately, you end up next to Rob Lowe, who's telling you all these wonderful things. As a guy, this is what you do. You think, okay, I'll go to Santa Barbara. I'll move away so it won't be so hard if I decide to settle things down a little bit. But that need for purpose, man, it doesn't go away no matter what. There's certain kind of guys like you. I think that's what you do. It's not even about money. I mean, money's important, but it's about doing the work, right? Yeah. I mean, I think it's the discipline. And I always, between jobs, would take another class. That's how I got Animal House. I got kind of tired of playing the same kind of. I was doing a lot of westerns, and I'm playing like the straight guy and all these episodic shows, the good, the nice guy next door. And so I took an improv class. I joined a group that we founded, the Groundlings, here in Los Angeles, and they're great improv. A lot of the SNL people came out of the Groundlings: Phil Hartman, Lorraine Newman, and Pee Wee Herman. A lot of those people, and so it gave me permission to be funny, or to understand comedy and not be so afraid of it. And so that's what I'd always do between jobs, just because you never knew if that job you just finished was your last job. And it was always on your mind, like, whoops, well, what if nobody calls,
Oh, and I'm telling you guys, we're going to have to wrap it. But, man, this book, Dan, glad to meet you. We haven't talked about everybody else, friendship with Kinnison, John Candy, all of these greats, these stories that walk you through so many different stories. The Roaring Time, the Fun Club, Kirstie Alley, the sex, the joy of just being a star, alive, and red-blooded and ready to go. Like,
oh, Johnny, it was good. And it still is, it's fun. I mean, now I'm doing this show called Virgin River, and we shoot up in Vancouver, British Columbia, and it's a huge, huge hit on Netflix. And it's a different kind of show. It's very sweet. It's a romance, and draws a different audience, But I think because of all of our isolation during the COVID times, and people really found this show, and so it's like Act 3, is in my career is changed everything, and it's a whole different kind of character I get to play.
I love it, man. And again, I love a book like this, a biography, an autobiography.
Thank you.
It's great. Dan, glad to meet you. Tim Matthewson, I'm telling you guys, you'll absolutely love it. It is a great ride through Hollywood and 7 decades of a great work, man. Hey, man, thanks a lot for taking time to come back and spend even more talking about it, because it's too much to get into 10 minutes, and I really appreciate your time.
Johnny, thank you so much. Nycki, thank you.
Thank
and
you.
I had a ball talking to you guys.
You take care.
Tim Matthewson.
Yes, you too.
What a good cat, man. How great is that?
Just a couple stories in that guy's full ass life.
There's so much more, Nick. You gotta read this book.
I have no problem reading that book.
It's, for those of you who want to know, Tim Matthewson, Matheson, and it's called Damn Glad to Meet You. You will laugh. It's a great look at the world, man.
This is the Johnny Dare Morning Show.
The Johnny Dare Morning Show.